So now it's time to introduce to you our speaker for today, Reverend JJeffley. I'd like to share a few things about Reverend JJeffley before I ask him and invite him up to the podium here. A few things to note about him is that JJeffley is the father of Jeffley, a longtime member here at East Bay. He is also a two-time finalist for International Toastmasters, so that means this brother has a lot to say, okay? And you would want to stay woke, as Arlene would say, right? Channeling Arlene right now. Some of the ways that I know James, I'd like to share with you. When I first came to East Bay over in Preservation Park, we were doing the inner child work, and he was one of the first people that I met at the time, and I can remember his beautiful smile, and sitting there, Cayman, making his way here, not quite here yet, but on his way. And I can remember the warmth that exuded from him and how friendly he was and just genuine. Very, very deeply penetrating eyes that were very, very warm to me, very comforting. And along the years, I got a chance to know him again as Rev Up. Some of you may have met Rev Up. Yeah, you may have met Rev Up. And so I was there for the era of Rev Up as well. And we've also had an opportunity to do some work together in community where we support folks who do a lot of major work in the community. And he has pitched a tent there. And he provides the most amazing hugs ever that you will ever experience. He is a professional hugger. It's professional. No, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. He's a professional hugger. You can truly feel the exuberance of love radiating from him. The last thing I'd like to share about Reverend JJeffley, it was about, I guess, almost 3 years ago or so, and I was planning my wedding. And we sit in a vast spiritual community, so how do you determine who is going to do your service, your ceremony? It was really hard because we had a lot of folks to choose from. And so myself and my then fiance, we went into prayer separately in separate rooms for a few days just to kind of see what name would come up. And the face and name that came up for us was JJeffley. And so he is the minister who married me and my husband almost 2 years ago. And yeah, you can clap for that. That's a wonderful, yeah. Thanks. And I have to tell you, it was the most magnificent wedding ceremony ever. And I know that a lot of you have had wedding ceremonies yourself, but I just have to say it was the best one ever. So a lot of you know him as James, Reverend James, Rev Up. I know him as friend and as brother. Love him deeply, dearly, and truly. Please welcome up Reverend JJeffley.
Excuse us, we're busy. Thank you, dear. Oh, okay.
If you would outstretch your hands and repeat after me. Reverend James, we see you. We love you. We know who and what you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bliss, you're hired. Good morning, East Bay. For a long time, this was my church home, and I've been away from home for quite a while, and it's nice to be back home. Thank you. It's nice to see so many familiar and friendly faces here with loved ones. I want to thank you. I want to thank Reverend Anthony and Reverend Willa and Reverend Robert and everybody who had a hand in inviting me here to come before you today. Like, this is Bliss's first time being pulpit assistant, this is my first time actually speaking at East Bay Church on a Sunday. So it's a great honor. Thank you. She mentioned that I have another moniker. I'm also known as Reverend Up, and so I have a little catchphrase that I would like to share with you. If you would please, just indulge me. Turn to someone next to you, and I want you to look at this person and connect, and I want you to say to them with power, clarity, and conviction, "Up yours." For the uninitiated, allow me to explain. I do not mean that as an insult. I mean it as an invitation to raise every part of your life up to a higher level of peace, a higher level of joy, a higher level of consciousness. And in today's theme, a higher level of accountability. When they asked me to speak, I said, well, what do you want me to speak about? What's the theme? They said the theme for the month is accountability. I'm like, ooh, that feels like a big topic. Feels like one I have some areas to grow in. You teach best that which you most need to learn, so they say. I wanted to do a little prep work, so I looked it up. I wanted to find out what the true meaning is, because I have my meaning, you have your meaning, but let's see what Webster says. Webster says it's an obligation or a willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. Does that resonate with anybody? How many of you have that special someone in your life from whom you would like just a little more accountability? Anybody? How many of you happen to be that person? Wouldn't it be great if one time that one special friend of yours called you and said, hey, I'm running a little early? Wouldn't that be cool? Right? That'd be great. Accountability. I thought it interesting that Merriam-Webster gave a sentence to illustrate the definition of the word accountability. And the sentence they chose was, public officials lacking accountability. And I thought, well, I wonder what they could mean by that. Any of you experienced that? Some difficulty with public officials and accountability? What else I thought was interesting was that this word accountability is in the top 1% of all of the words people look up on Webster's Online. It's in the top 1%. What could possibly be driving people to look up the word accountability? I sat with that for a minute, and I looked at what was going on in the news and what people were talking about on Facebook and other social media. And what came to mind was November 9th, 2016. Any of you remember where you were on Wednesday, November 9th of 2016? You remember that? Some of you, maybe many of you, because I know where I'm speaking, were probably in the same place I was. We were having a WTF moment. Where to focus? Because I would venture to say some of us were confused. Yes? I don't know what to focus on. What just happened? What just happened? Am I seeing this correctly? Am I hearing this? Did that just happen? Because so many of us could not in a million years conceive of that. Some of us thought, oh, well, he talked about it, but there's no way he'll run, and he ran. And some of us thought, well, there's no way he'll make it through his primaries with all those other candidates, and he did. And some of us thought, well, there's no way he'll beat her. And technically he did through the Electoral College. Where to focus? Now what? How many of you have felt like this so far every day in 2017? You just wake up and you feel like Captain Picard. Damage report. What's on fire? What's broken? What have they destroyed today? Anybody? Is it just not just me? Okay. Yeah. And it was actually kind of hard for me to do the math on this, to figure this out, because, I mean, you look at the results, but you look at the person. And he told us. He said in no uncertain terms, on day one, I will ask Congress to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And yet, somewhere between 3.5 to 5.5 million people who happen to be on Obamacare voted for him. I don't understand that. Yes, I have health care, which is either helping to keep me well or alive, but I'm going to go in here and cast a vote for a guy who said he would take it away from me. That doesn't add up. I tried to do the math on this, but my head hurt at some point. I couldn't figure that out. Who would vote for someone to kill them? He told us, even after he said, oh, you know, I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. I just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, hey, they'll let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the... You can do anything. You can treat a woman any way you want to. It's okay. They let you do it. He said it. His words. And yet, surprisingly, 62% of non-college educated white women went into the booth and said, yes, that's fine with me. 25% of non-college educated Hispanic women said, yeah, that's fine. 16% of non-white women, non-college educated white women said, yeah, I'm okay with that. Meanwhile, the sisters weren't having it. Now, I look at those results and I go, that doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. He told you in no uncertain terms he's a misogynist through word and deed, and yet you still cast a ballot. I don't understand the formula for that. I don't get the math for that. Now, there were people, seniors, receiving Meals on Wheels, right, who voted for Trump. And then the first thing in his budget was to remove the funding for the community block grants, a significant portion of which fund Meals on Wheels. I knew he'd screw people over. I just didn't think I'd be one of them. There were people who are immigrants or have friends who are immigrants, and they voted for Trump because he was going to get rid of all the bad hombres. And then they realized, oh, my friend Roberto is a good hombre, but he's being deported. And I guess what some folks realize is, oh, there are only hombres. No good, no bad, just hombres. He said, I want to ban Muslims from coming into the country. I want to create a registry where Muslims will have to sign up so we can keep tabs on them. Yet, 3 times more Muslims voted for Trump than for Romney. This does not add up. Has anybody figured out the math on this? Why would people vote against their own self-interest? Anybody else think about that question? Anybody else ponder that? Internalized depression, there could be a number of reasons. I have a theory I'll share with you in just a moment. A number of reasons, but it doesn't add up. Now, I'm not trying to divide. I'm not trying to blame. I'm not trying to other here. I'm trying to get to the root cause of something that has to do with accountability. So let me be clear. This ain't about Trump. He just happens to provide a lot of really salient examples to support the point that I'm trying to get to. And it's relevant and it's topical, and most of you are familiar with it, so we have something in common. We can relate. You with me? The question that I'm asking is, to whom or what are we ultimately accountable? So we think, and yes, but what part of ourselves? As I sat with this in meditation, what dawned on me is everybody's accountable. Everybody's accountable. For what? Everything. Everything. You don't get to escape accountability. Oh, you might think, oh, I can do some stuff. And as long as there's no cameras or cell phones, as long as there's no witnesses, right, I might be able to get away with it. No, as Reverend E has said here on time after time, yeah, nobody gets away with anything. What came to me was that there are two types of accountability. There's external accountability, things to which I am accountable outside of myself, and there's internal accountability. And what happens in the external accountability, you find things like laws and contracts and agreements and tribes and culture, society. We have accountability every day. You walk down the street, you see a traffic sign, speed limit sign, there's accountability. Cop sitting there with a radar detector, accountability, right? Do not do this, do not park here, do not step on the grass. We have accountability all over the place. Any of you feel accountable through the external means? Yes? Okay. Then there's internal accountability. Our beliefs, our political affiliations, our spiritual ideologies, our customs, beliefs, values, attitudes. And here's what came to me. Sometimes the internal accountabilities trump the external ones. In the morning service, they got the Trump pun. You can't escape accountability because it is the foundation of everything. It's the foundation of every relationship. How many of you have heard people say that in order to have a healthy relationship, you must first have trust? But can you have trust without accountability? See, my thinking on this right now is that accountability comes first. Did the person show up the way they said they would? Did they do what they said they would do? Did they honor their word? If so, then, oh, okay, I think I can trust them. And if they do it consistently, if they are consistently accountable to you, then they build up a reservoir of trust over time. Am I making any amount of sense? Okay. Trust up. Thank you. Accountability has been present in so many societies throughout history. Don Miguel Ruiz talked about this in the 4 agreements. What was the first agreement? Be impeccable with your word. What's that about? Accountability. Back in the days before lawyers and contracts, you could just say, yes, I'm going to do this. You could shake on it, and that was it. Your word was your bond. You were known by your reputation. It preceded you. Now we got lawyers and contracts, and we got VeriSign and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, still, even in relationships, it's about, can I trust you? Is your word good? How many of you have identified as a Christian at some point in your life? Did you get lessons about accountability in Christianity? Absolutely. It's built on accountability. Romans 14:12. So then each of us shall give account of himself to God. At some point in the Christian narrative is you live your life, you live your life, you live your life, and then you die. And when you die, where do you go? St. Peter, pearly gates. They whip out the book, looks at, all right, debits and credits. You got more credits than debits? Walk on in. Sit on the right at the right hand of God. Oh, but if your ledger's full of red, whoo, where do you go? That other place. You're wearing too many clothes for that. It's hot down there. So over 2 billion Christians around the world understand the concept of accountability because it is part of the teaching. Buddhists understand the concept of accountability. We are the heirs of our own actions. Ooh. Ooh, you mean I think some stuff and I do some stuff and then stuff happens to me? You mean I am the cause of the effect in my life? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, pretty much. Woo! Think about the power in that thought. How many of us have ever, and I'm going to tell the truth on this, how many of us have ever said, you know what? You make me mad. He makes me mad. She makes me mad. Yes? Have we blamed other people for stuff for our own suffering? What I have come to realize is that is one of the most disempowering things I could ever do to myself. Because the moment I try to make you responsible for my happiness is the moment I give you all my power. And now I got to sit here and suffer in silence. I got to wallow in my own misery because you're not making me happy. And I can't be happy until you give me permission. And when will that happen? She said never. She just looked at me straight. It was cold. Never. But the moment I take responsibility for that, and I'm not saying it's always easy. I have made some messes in my life. Some of you know that. But at some point, I have to look at that mess and go, you know what? Willingness. I made that. I did that. You didn't do that. You didn't do that. You did. I made that. And the thing I'm experimenting with these days is actually having some joy about that. Woo! Look at the mess I made. Wow, that's impressive. The kind of consciousness you have to make a mess like that. Man, I'm the best mess maker there's ever been. Woohoo! And that's kind of short-lived because then the reality sinks in that I still have to clean it up. But if I had the power to make it, I have the power to clean it. And I'm still trying to clean up some. Our Muslim friends tell us that the present life isn't necessarily the goal. It's the afterlife. Yeah, have a good life now, but you're really focused on the afterlife because what they understand is they have to be conscious of God in all aspects of their life, knowing they will one day be asked questions about their life. They call it Judgment Day. Do you know what else they call it? Accountability Day. Over 1.5 billion Muslims around the world get the concept of accountability. Here in Science of Mind, do we have anything about accountability? Right? Ernest Holmes, there's no law but my own soul shall set. Nothing can come upon the path of the soul but that thing that the soul attracts. Oh, not only did I make the mess, but I attracted the mess? Whoo! What am I thinking? Oh, now that's a good question. What am I thinking? You heard that? Thoughts become things? Which thoughts? All thoughts. This chair was just a thought in somebody's mind. Your clothes were just a thought in somebody's mind. This building was just a thought in somebody's mind. This church was just a thought in somebody's mind. And then boom, working individually or collectively, they made it up. When they say there is one mind, and I am one with that mind, what did you think it meant? Power of God is mine to use? What kind of power did you think it was? If it's the power to create the entire universe, and you are one with that, and you have the power to use it to create, wow! Imagine the mess you can create with God power. Imagine the peace and the joy and the love you can create with God power. You just have to choose which one of those do you want to be accountable to. Whether it's in the external and the laws and the social contracts, or it's in the theology, the ideology, the philosophy, there's always something about accountability. Even for those people who do not ascribe or subscribe to any of those things, even for the card-carrying atheist who says, no, none of that for me. There's still a moment where you will have to face accountability. For me, sometimes it shows up in the middle of the night when the lights are off and I'm alone with myself. That little voice pops out. Hi. How you doing? What you doing? You trying to go to sleep? Oh. Well, hold on. There's some stuff I want to talk to you about. I have a list. We're going to be here a while. I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to you. I was turn on the TV, watch Netflix, read a book, eat some food, right? Try and distract myself. When I'm done with all that and I lay down and go, okay, I'm ready to go. Hi. Miss me? Oh, you thought you were going to get rid of me, huh? Yeah, I'm not that easy to get rid of. And somewhere in the wee small hours of the morning, that little voice reminds me of the stuff that I've done. You will be accountable. Even if that person is no longer on the planet, you will have to face it. There is no running. At some point, it will break you. And if you're anything like me, you may find yourself on your knees, crying, saying, I am sorry. So if there's anybody here that thinks I owe them an apology, you're probably right. And I'm sorry. And after that voice has had its way with me, that other voice pops in and says, what were people thinking back on November 8th? Can I get some sleep, please? Where are all these thoughts coming from? So I sat with that, and I had an epiphany one day, and it came in the most unlikely of places. I was teaching a Microsoft Excel class. I kid you not. Anybody use Excel? Anybody use math? Okay. Here's what dawned on me. I'm thinking through this. The wheel starts spinning. I have the light bulb moment. People voted the way they voted. It has something to do with the order of operations. In math, there's a certain way the numbers are calculated. 1 plus 1 times 5 divided by 6 squared plus 4. You can't just go left to right. There's a sequence. You know what I'm talking about? Right? Quick math test. Now, I know some of you say, I did not plan to come to church to have a math test. What? I thought I was going to get some religion, some spirituality, some love. He's talking about math. Just bear with me for a moment. What's 1 plus 1 times 5? Oh, some of y'all know this. Okay, let's change one thing. We're going to keep the same numbers, the same order, the same operations. We're just going to make one little change. What's 1 plus 1 times 5? Oh, 10? You're right. Ta-da. What's different? Parentheses. The parentheses change everything. You with me? Now, for those of you who don't quite know what this is about, it's about PEMDAS. Y'all heard of that? Anybody remember the mnemonic? What is it? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's a way we have of remembering it. Now, no offense if you have an aunt and her name is Sally. I'm sure she's dear. But we remember this because everything in parentheses gets calculated first, followed by exponents, things raised to a power, followed by multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. This is the way it works, folks. This is the way it works. Multiplication first, then addition, 6. Parentheses first, 2 times 5 is 10. Same numbers, same order, same operators. We just made one little change. So when the parentheses show up, the parentheses say, I don't care about your exponents. I don't care about your multiplication, your division, your addition, or subtraction. I can't see you. I can't hear you. I don't want to talk about you. La, 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 la. Because the only thing that matters to the parentheses is what's inside. You with me? We have the same thing for accountability. When the coal miners went to vote in overwhelming numbers for Trump, they didn't care about your marriage equality. They didn't care about your environment. They didn't care about anything except coal mining jobs. You with me? PEMDAS. That's why people voted the way they vote. That's why we sometimes do things that surprise ourselves. Please excuse my default accountability system. There is a thing within each of us to which we are ultimately accountable. You may not understand what it is. If you had to make a choice between you can only identify as woman or white for the rest of your life, which one would you pick? Woman is her default accountability system. If I asked you, you can only choose one for the rest of your life, woman or person of color, what would you pick? Woman, default accountability system. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, good or bad. I'm saying you have it. If you don't know which one is yours, it will rule you. It will rule you. And so some of us who were in shock and dismay from some of our Facebook friends, how could that? Don't you know I'm gay, I'm lesbian, I'm an immigrant, I'm whatever you identify as that they voted against. Why did they do that? Because they couldn't hear that. They couldn't see that. They didn't want to talk about it because that was not their default accountability system. It was not the thing to which they are ultimately accountable. Am I making any amount of sense here? PEMDAS. So there are times when the internal trumps the external. For example, remember her? Right? Kim Davis, county clerk in Kentucky, would not sign the marriage license for same-sex couples, even though the Supreme Court said, do it. What she said is, I do not see your equality. I do not hear the Constitution. I will follow my own default accountability, which is her faith. I'm not saying her faith is right or wrong, good or bad. I'm saying her job asked her to be accountable to one thing, but her internal system asked her to be accountable to another. You with me? Decides to pull out of the Paris climate change accords. I don't hear about your planet. I don't hear about your pollution. I just hear about my profits. You with me? What about you? What is your PEMDAS? What is the stake in the ground for you? What is the thing that you will die for? What is the thing that you will fight for? Is it something big like the planet, like the environment? Is it something big like justice or equality? Is it something big like equality and diversity? Is that your accountability system? Or is it something closer to home? Is it your community, your family, or is it just yourself? I love me so much. And really not so much about you. I love me so much. Oh, you laugh. Who knows a narcissist? Thank you. But it was Ben Franklin who said, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly we shall all hang separately. Ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to tackle some of the things that cause us sleepless nights, we are not going to do it alone. We have to find that thing that we can all rally around. We got to stop doing this division thing and start doing the addition thing, right? We got to stop doing competition and start working on collaboration and cooperation. When you divide, you conquer. We can no longer afford to have that done to us. We can no longer afford to do it to ourselves. One mind, one mind. We are all just unique expressions of the creative force that some call God or the universe or the is. You're God, you're God, you're God, you're God, you're God, you're God, I'm God, we're all God. If we're all God, what if we just got around that? Because it's late in the day for lesser things. Dr. Howard Thurman said, keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Lynn Grabhorn said, you get what you focus on. Well, if I focus on lower things, what am I going to manifest? Lower things. So I need to focus on higher things and surround myself with people who are also focused on higher level things and support each other and build each other up and not tear each other down, because that is the only way we'll get to survival as a species, is coming together. Thought by thought, minute by minute, day by day. Keep fresh before me the moments of my high resolve. Not the lower stuff, the depression, the sadness, the guilt, the grief, the fear, the shame. No, we've got to up ours. We've got to focus on the euphoria, the joy, the kindness, the compassion, the things that lift our spirit, the things that nurture and support us. If I'm going to create a default accountability for myself, I want to put some parentheses around love. And I'm not suggesting that it is easy or that it is quick, just that it is necessary. And I'm committed to starting that right now. Because as they told us, all we need is love. All we need is love. La da 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 da. All we need is love. La da 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 da. All we need is love. Love. Love is all we need. Thank you.
All right, the Reverend James Jeffrey. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. God is good. God is good.